Hi everyone, Adam Kirtley here. I hope this message finds you well. I'm the chaplain at Whitman College. Just been thinking about how a little more than a year ago I was attending the national or the annual conference of my national professional organization, and we were meeting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And our keynote speaker was Father Richard Rohr, and Richard Rohr is actually a world known thinker, theologian, and writer. He also is the founder for the Center for Action and Contemplation, in based out of Albuquerque. I just have always really just been drawn to that combination. We sometimes, I think, tend to hold those two things as dichotomous. Action and contemplation in his framework and his theology are inseparable. He ended up delivering a keynote address for a relatively small gathering of chaplains. There, because of the westward journey, we had fewer there. There were probably only 150 of us present, but it was an incredibly powerful discussion about wisdom and what he calls the wisdom path or the wisdom pattern. And I've been thinking about those words and considering how they might be applied to my life and to my life as a participant in the Whitman community. He sort of creates a number of categories, and he says the first is that the first tent along this path or this pattern is order. And he says that this is basically I'm looking at some of my notes here, the basic belief and meaning and purpose and identity that we hold for ourselves. And that for many of us on our sort of spiritual or wisdom journey, it can take us a while to get there, and then once we're there, people frequently often stay there. And as you might imagine, he also offered both sort of the genuine and I think positive elements of finding that meaning and purpose, but then also critiqued it and said that folks who reside in this tent of order are often quick to expel and reject, creating scapegoats which take away their own sense of self-doubt. He said that if we're not careful in this tent, we will flee from inclusiveness and from depth and from much needed self-knowledge, and that those who stay in this tent will have a strong punitive need, perhaps to restore an appropriate sense of the ordered world. And so as I describe what it means to find the sense of meaning and purpose, it can so quickly become related to and associated and tied to really fundamental or fundamentalist beliefs. He said that the next tent on the path is disorder. So the first is order, the second is disorder. And here the world as you have known it or as we have fashioned it, we find isn't always true. And this seems to be, I think, a higher level of reflection and being willing to sort of be critical of and examine more thoroughly those values that maybe we've had in sort of a foundational way. But again, he offers sort of a warning to those who choose to reside in the disordered tent. He says here that this can be a place of permanent dismissal of an abiding sense of cynicism. You think that you're enlightened because you're not that way anymore, that way being the order tent. He says that in the disorder tent, authority is nearly always held as suspect, and that it can be difficult to build anything positively when it's built upon a foundation of suspicion. At this point in the talk, I began to feel fairly indicted and wondering what was left. Initially, order sounded good, and then it didn't, and then disorder sounded good, and then it didn't. And he finally says that the third and sort of aspirational place to reside on the wisdom journey is what he calls reorder. Reorder is where you allow the first two tents to teach from or to teach and to model for each other a sense of balance of both. In reorder, he says we transcend the binaries between what we thought was holding something foundational, and then the other end of that being to burn it all down, and that that in the place of reorder, we can find a path that is both on one hand foundational and traditional, and on the other hand deeply deeply progressive, radical, even. And that the place of reorder is a place of self knowledge and understanding, and living out into the world with a sense of compassion and love. So Father Rohr explained this much more eloquently than I have, reading through some of my old notes. But I do think that there is a sense in which we might be able to apply these lessons to our lives right now, not only in terms of, I think, the clear political messaging that comes from being identifying as an ordered person or a disordered person, and the implications that has for sort of geopolitical realities, but also as a participant in the Whitman community, and as we think about how we are, as a community and as individuals, navigating this season of political discontent, of racial injustice, and of public health, and working to keep ourselves and each other safe. Those are all dots that I can't connect for you in this talk. This is the work that we must do in our own way and on our own time. But I invite you to take some time to consider those things. Until then, friends, I hope you take good care of yourselves and each other, and I look forward to seeing you around soon.